The government's imposition of 20% VAT on school fees, now an almost certain reality. This measure, confirmed by Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, yesterday, has sparked intense reaction, from practical concerns over school affordability to heated historical comparisons about perceived privilege and the attacks on particular groups who are considered by the ruling government to have some sort of privilege over others. Now the Independent Schools Council, the ISC, representing 1,400 schools, has announced plans for legal action, with David Panic, KC, spearheading a case centred on the alleged violation of human rights laws. And Julie Robinson, CEO of the ISC, framed the challenge as the defence of children's access to independent education. I think it should be a defence of children's access to education. I don't think education should be penalised in any way. If children are not getting enough education in a state sector, they must be allowed to get it elsewhere, in the same way as children access piano lessons and out-of-school activities. The ISC's concern is that this VAT hike could financially edge out families who've relied on private education but will struggle with projected tuition fees increases of 10%, potentially moving over 37,000 students into an already moving these students into already strained state sector. European diplomats have added an international dimension, requesting exemptions for diplomatic families reliant on international schools, as children in such families often can't shift into the state system at all. Historically loaded language has entered the discussion, as critics link these policies to past punitive taxes on perceived privilege, reminiscent, they claim, of early 20th century approaches under regimes like Nazi Germany and Bolshevik Russia. And the comparison has prompted backlash from some quarters, especially with attacks on Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson. While such comparisons appear rhetorically charged, the ISC's actual legal challenge avoids these inflammatory associations, focusing instead on breaches of the European Convention on Human Rights. And the ISC's case will likely raise difficult questions for this government. Firstly, is this a pragmatic tax reform or an ideological stance targeting educational privilege? Secondly, can the state sector manage the increased enrolment in the middle of a school year? Thirdly, the government has suggested that it will bolster the continuity of education allowance to support military and diplomatic families in affording private schooling, a move that acknowledges that unintended impacts of the policy, but leaves questions over adequate coverage for other specialised institutions such as faith schools and those offering specialised arts or SEND support, particularly to those who have not been lucky enough to have got through the 2 years or more of investigations to qualify for state-supplied SEND support. So wasting a lot of time in the school system. The debate has grown as the opposition voices ask if such a policy overshadows potential educational freedoms, suggesting that targeting private school tuition could potentially infringe on parents' rights to choose alternative education options for their children. As this legal battle unfolds, it may very well serve as a defining moment for Britain's approach to the intersection of education, taxation, and human rights in an era increasingly attentive to the perceived privileges within society. And we shouldn't, of course, forget that Keir Starmer accepted a significant donation and access to accommodation so that his son's GCSE regime would not be affected by the upcoming general election. He is fully aware of the need to add extra money to ensure that an education can be provided for his children that is sound and secure. If it's provided for the children of the Prime Minister, it should be equally possible to provide it for any other child in our system. I think the fundamental issue here is that our education system needs to change. Our education system needs to be broader, and we need to use technology in a way that was trialled and trialled badly during the COVID crisis, but the technology exists, and if we tailored our educational needs to enlist the help of that technology, both children and teachers would benefit, and we might find a way to cut through the financial gripes that our educational system is so far throwing up and making it almost impossible to move forward.